What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, July 24th. And I'm getting my feed fed back to me from the RBN control room with a delay. Okay, it's gone now. All right, so we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And before we get into it, though, we have to issue a retraction here because on yesterday's show we had somebody who called on in who was breaking this story of this supposed GCHQ document that came on out indicating that British intelligence spied on Donald Trump at the specific request of Barack Obama. And it turns out to be a hoax. It's false news. Somebody's trying to poison the well. And a lot of people caught this, and we do have to be vigilant because there are people out there just trying to flood independent media with bogus stories so they can try and wreck our credibility and bring the audience back to the official Department of Propaganda here. But this one is a hoax. Now, that's not to say that the basic premise that Obama was asking for help on spying for Trump is incorrect. In fact, if you'll remember on CNN's Anderson Cooper, James Clapper basically said this whole spy thing, this whole investigation goes all the way up to Obama. He said President Obama is responsible for that. So we'll keep an eye on that. I'm going to change the normal order of how I do my talking points here, and I'm going to start with the international news because there's a lot going on here. Israel has shot down a Syrian fighter jet over the Golan Heights, and Israel is claiming that the jet appeared to be on an attack course into the Golan, and they shot it down with 2 Patriot missiles. We still don't know the fate of the flight crew. Syrian state media is saying the fighter jet was actually hit in Syrian airspace while conducting raids against Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant and other fighters, and basically portrays this as the Israeli enemy supporting the armed terrorist groups and targeting the warplanes, targeting them, which following that little stunt with the white helmets the other day, a lot of people are realizing that Israel and the jihadists in Syria are actually a lot closer than previously known. So in other places in Syria, the Syrian Arab Army and its allies have kicked off an operation to defeat ISIS terrorists in southern Syria east of the occupied Golan Heights. And they've liberated a couple of villages and some nearby hills. They're just making great progress. Now, the Syrian Arab Army retook a post of the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force at the village of Al-Rafid. Thus, the only areas de facto controlled by members of the Free Syria Army and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham east of the Golan Heights are Baghira, Birjam, Quneitra, Jubata, al-Kashab. Now, as we reported yesterday, Russia came up with an idea to calm Israel down by saying that all Iranian forces would be kept 100 kilometers from the Golan border. And Israel rejected the plan. They're stamping their feet and they're saying Iran must leave Syria completely, just will not tolerate their presence at all. Meanwhile, we're seeing here in the United States where our Secretary of Defense is out there saying, well, we're adamant that Russia must leave Syria. And it's so bizarre because Iran and Russia are in Syria at the request of the Syrian government. The United States does not have permission to be there. The United States does not have a legal justification for being there. There's been no UN Security Council resolution authorizing military force in Syria. There's no declaration of war coming from the United States Congress as required by the Constitution. So it's arrogance and hubris. The U.S. is the invader. All right, we got some callers on the line already. Jeff in Idaho, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello?
Hello, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Oh, this is Jim from Chicago.
Uh, okay. Hello, Jim. Well, I don't know what happened with Jeff in Idaho, but go ahead, Jim.
Okay, every morning, Michael, I listen to the Farm Report, and let me tell you, the farmers in the Midwest are very, very angry regarding these tariffs or trades. They said they will probably lose a lot of money or even go bankrupt because it's going to hurt them not only in the short term, but possibly in the long term, which means if they're going to be hurting, you know, the consumers like yourself, I, and others are going to be hurting also.
Well, yes and no, because the producers here in the United States of America are saying because China is no longer available to them as a customer, they're building up surpluses of product. And surpluses going into the supply chain to the supermarket should drive prices down. Now, the good news here is that Donald Trump has announced about $12 billion worth of subsidies for the farmers that are being hurt by the tariffs. But it isn't just the farmers. There was just a story now on Fox News about how stocks in the Whirlpool are going down because their sales are starting to drop because of the price increases associated with the tariffs. This is really going to slam the entire U.S. economy. This was not the time to start a tariff war, let alone a currency war.
Right. Now, you mentioned about Donald Trump. It's trying to get $12 billion for the farmers. Doesn't that have to be approved by the Congress?
It depends. It could come out of his discretionary fund from the executive branch. Of course, that might be most of the discretionary fund. But yes, technically you're correct. Under the Constitution, the House of Representatives has to initiate all revenue bills, so they would have to vote for it. But at this point, I think you're going to find Congress is going to get on board with this one.
But how long will it take before the farmers get the money?
You know, the government can take a long time, but Trump made the announcement during a speech this morning, and I guess as soon as he gets back to Washington, D.C., he's going to meet with the House leadership and say, we got to get this thing going. Yeah,
really interesting. Again, you make a very good point. Why in the hell would he do this during this time of any presidency, especially knowing that he might only have 2 years left as being president?
Well, the timing issue for me is the fact that our economy is already very fragile. You get into...
Well, he doesn't believe that, though.
Say again?
He does not believe that.
I think he's been told that it's not in good shape. I mean, he's still got his business interests and they're being run by his family members as sort of a semi-blind trust. But I'm sure from his kitchen cabinet, if you will, certainly the awareness of the totality of our nation's debt has to tell you this is a fragile economy. 40 million Americans still on food stamps. This is a fragile economy. You only get into tariff and currency wars when you're in a position of strength, and this was not the time to do it.
That's a very good point. Well, Michael, I'll let you go. You take care.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just now joining our network, and we're going to go to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I think just like the tax cuts, I think the farmers are going to get the aid as Green Giant. I hate to say it, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, it could very well be that the subsidies are going to go to the large corporate farming concerns, and the little guys are going to get left out again.
And they're going to be pushed out of the way so the big guys can come and grab their stuff up on pennies on the dollar. You know what, Mike? It's not going to help the prices being so low, because the price of soybeans has dropped like 50%. I mean, that crushes. That's a crushing blow. I don't think it's going to help the regular, normal farmer per se. I gave up on Trump like a while ago. I had hope for him, but he got more flip flops than John Kerry and Walmart combined.
Yep. It's got more flip flops than that shark I was telling you about yesterday.
Yeah, Mike, on Syria, did you see the video of these buildings on fire where they evacuated the white helmets? Obviously, they set fire to munitions that they couldn't use anymore to try to get rid of some of the evidence of arms that was in these buildings.
Yeah, this was the Khadisha crossing, and this was the crossing from Syria into Israel. The fires were obviously deliberately set and were set apparently to try and further obscure just how much Israel had been supporting the anti-Assad factions.
And Saudi Arabia, and the United States, Canada, Britain, France. And Mike, by the way, the guy who created the company, created the white helmets,
yes,
the British guy, he's also connected to a lot of military contractors. I don't know if you knew that. But he's intricately involved.
I didn't, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, so, like I said, there was military advisors in there, militants, whole mishmash of other groups mixed into that. They pulled them out, Like I said, why didn't they wait for Assad to pin medals on them since they're such great rescuers? That's all you hear on Bloomberg and Fox News and CNN. Dude, every single newspaper and magazine, if you go on YouTube, even that, the white helmets, saving lives, and it's just so much. And Netflix, they got a Oscar and Netflix. They all push the same propaganda. It blows your mind how George Clooney, it blows your mind how intricate this crap is, right?
Yeah. It really does. And, we know that the white helmets are actually just al-Nusra with a white helmet on. We know that they staged some of these false flag chemical attacks to try and frame Assad. They've actually been caught on video helping al-Nusra murder people. These are not the good guys.
Isn't that funny? That's why they're called the white helmets, because white is associated with, we're good, we're angels, right? They wouldn't be called the black helmets.
Of course.
There's a lot in the name. People don't realize, that's the reason why it's called the white helmets. And like I said before, there was no emergency number for them to call, and like the Syrian people to call. Hey, white helmets, hashtag white helmets, whatever. There was no 311 or 113 number that's in Syria to call the emergency services, because these weren't a real group. The real emergency number was 113 or 311 or something like that to call the real Syrian emergency group. These people were like a phantom group.
They were a PR stunt. They were a PR front. It's public relations. It's propaganda. They're actors.
It's a shame, Mike, how the West can find money. And, Mike, remember I told you about the guy who shot up Toronto yesterday? See how they said he was mentally ill? He's mentally ill, but then they released his name, and right there, that tells you everything. That tells you everything. He was a terrorist. They bring these people back home. It's insane. And there's a couple hundred going to Germany and Britain.
I think the real issue in this case is the fact that this guy was, being treated for depression. Was he on SSRIs? And apparently one of his, we're going to be talking about this a little bit later in the show, but apparently one of his very close friends that he's been with for years said it was like a completely different person, which is a very common SSRI reaction, where all of a sudden your personality just inverts. So I think that's what, I think the SSRIs are more of an issue here than Canada's immigration policy. Although there's no question that this open borders idea has brought a lot of additional crime and suffering into all these countries in Europe and the United States.
But there was a report in Syria when they captured a couple ISIS fighters that they had, drugs on them. So you think maybe they're getting drugged up to do what they're doing. Not all of them, but not, some of them, maybe they're getting doped up enough to be, feeling good enough to blow themselves up, say, or do something that they wouldn't, unless they're very religious.
That's a common feature of war. It's not talked about. I mean, if you go all the way back, to Vietnam, a lot of those kids came back, hooked on heroin. A lot of pilots and even soldiers would be doing meth to keep themselves alert and awake on long patrols. Methadone was actually first created as a battlefield drug to make the soldiers more alert and more aggressive.
I just think it's a joke how they can find $25 million for the white helmets, the UK, $75 million the US fines for the white helmets, and they want to give $6,000 to these refugees coming into Europe, but yet they can't find no money for homeless people in tents downtown LA or anywhere else in the EU. I think these people are all just garbage, Mike. I mean, Yeah, I mean, call me wrong, but I think they're just the garbage. I mean, they know they're doing wrong.
No, they don't. No, they
ideology.
Don't make that mistake. They don't know that they're doing wrong. They're convinced they serve a higher purpose. We call the principle the true believer. Somebody who believes they serve a higher purpose, and therefore everything that they do is perfectly justified. And we're going to be talking about that a little later in the show in a slightly different context. But that's what's going on. Those people who are on board with the one world government, new world order, they see that ideological goal of one planet, one population, one private central bank, and everything that they do to move toward that, good treatment for the refugees, ignoring your own civil population, it's all perfectly justified. The ends justify the means.
And I don't think there's any hope, Mike, because the world's all messed up now. I mean, I'm 48. I don't know how you old are. You're 30, right?
I'm going to be 66 next month.
Have you ever seen it so bad?
No.
I mean, I'm 48. I never seen anything like this.
Nope.
Yeah, so we're on in uncertain time. All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go, and they're very uncertain times, very troubling times. There's no question about that. And I think it's all coming apart. I think ultimately this push for a one world government is doomed to fail, and in its wake, it's going to leave devastation across the globe. All right, now then, yesterday we reported on how Israel tried out its first ever interception with the David's Sling missiles against two Syrian SS-21 missiles, and neither of them hit. And they're saying it's a technological reason. They'll be able to figure it out in the next 2 to 3 days. So not very good here. Another story about the White Helmets evacuation. Apparently, Israel evacuated alleged Mossad-linked rebel commanders during this rescue of the White Helmets. And it stands to reason that probably anybody who is still in Syria who could be convinced to testify about links to certain foreign governments, whether Israel or the United States, is probably being gotten out of Syria right now. And only the poor fools who thought they were actually fighting a real jihad are being left behind to be slaughtered. Now, a lot of people are getting very upset about where the White Helmets are going. And over in Great Britain, there's a bit of a furor going over. And the attitude coming from the government seems to be they may be jihadists, but there are jihadists. And apparently they're going to be bringing 98 White Helmet members to Great Britain. And the rest are going to go to Canada and a couple of other places as well. But Britain is prepared to offer asylum to up to 500 White Helmet members or relatives of the group. So a lot of people are very unhappy with that. And I can imagine with all the other problems they have with the refugees coming on in, these jihadis with a known history of violence, not to mention deception, they're not going to be seen as good neighbors here. Okay, now over in Gaza, they're running out of supplies. Hospitals have had to temporarily close, and Gaza's sole power station was shut down because Israel's still not letting fuel through. Now, there is a ceasefire, and the flaming balloons and kites have stopped. But what Hamas asked for in return for that, loosening up the flow of supplies into Gaza, Israel has not done that. And I'll be very honest, I am not surprised at all. Israel just does like Israel. Anyway, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're getting an update now about that Syrian Sukhoi jet that was shot down. And according to a military source in Damascus, the pilot was killed. He's identified as Colonel Umran Mare of Tartus. And again, Syria is insisting that the plane was targeted on the Syrian side. All right, getting on back to Gaza. The United Nations, UN OCHA, is saying that the essential services in Gaza are on the verge of collapsing. And supplies of emergency fuel provided by the UN for critical facilities are being depleted. And basically, the UN is calling on Israel to end restrictions preventing the importation of fuel and for donors to provide immediate funding for emergency fuel, which is now predicted will run out in early next month. In just a few weeks, Gaza will be totally out of fuel. And at least one hospital has been forced to shut down temporarily. Services are being reduced at others. They've got ongoing blackouts of about 20 hours a day. They only have electricity for 4 hours every day, which means whatever food they do have, those refrigerators are probably not keeping it fresh. This is inhuman treatment All right. Apparently, Israeli forces shot and killed a 15-year-old Palestinian kid in the Dahisha refugee camp during a detention raid. They just basically showed up, arrested 2 Palestinians, and shot this 15-year-old. This makes 28 Palestinian children killed by Israel since the beginning of the year. Now, does anybody know how many Israeli children have been killed by Palestinians since the beginning of the year? No, let's not always see the same hands here. The number is 0. It's absolutely 0. There's a website called If Americans Knew, and it just lays out the statistics of what's really going on to show how completely one-sided all the death and destruction is here. Getting on over into Iran, this Twitter duel, if you will, is getting a little bit silly. And as you know, Trump tweeted out to Iran, all in caps, about bad things will happen to you. And Iran's foreign minister tweeted back, all in caps, color is unimpressed. This is headed in a bad direction. And David Hogg couldn't resist getting in on this. And he sort of re-edited Trump's original all-cap message to Iran and redirected it back to him. And this is what David Hogg tweeted. To U.S. President Trump, never ever threaten the United States again, or you will suffer consequences the like of which few throughout history have ever suffered before. We are no longer a country that will stand for your demented words of violence and death. Be cautious. Now, he's grabbing for attention, and my first instinct would have been to say, I'm not going to give him any. But I'm assuming that somebody is listening to this program who knows somebody in the Secret Service Protective Detail, and they might want to have a little talk with this guy. Because it's not nice to threaten the president's life. In fact, it's illegal. And again, like Dustin, I'm disappointed in Donald Trump, but he is the president. And we have got to work together to get civility back into our political discourse, or we're never going to solve any of these problems. We've got to start being polite and respectful to each other. We've got to be willing to hear what the other person says. And we just have a nice, logical, rational discussion. Now, unfortunately, one of the reasons the civility is going up in smoke is because one side is utterly devoid of any workable ideas here. So remember Ari Fleischer? He was press secretary under President George W. Bush, was out there rah-rahing for the Iraq War. And now he's back out there saying, yes, it's time to go in and do regime change on Iran. You know, an unstable Iran is good for peace. Let's go in and destabilize it. Well, the U.S. has destabilized Iran twice before. Once successfully in 1953, when they overthrew the democratically elected government of Mohammad Mossadegh and installed the Shah as dictator, emperor, king, whatever you want to call it. And then following the Iranian Revolution in 1979, when the Iranian people took their own country back, the U.S. tried it again in 2009. That one fell flat on its face because the Iranian people figured out what was going on, that there wasn't really an organic revolution among their own people. It was all being brought in by agent provocateurs from outside. So we're definitely seeing the laying of the propaganda groundwork to go into Iran. And we're not doing very well, or the U.S. government isn't doing very well with the wars it's already got right now. Anyway, we got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant them anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If you got the money, well, we won't say we did.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And we're talking about the propaganda being cranked up against Iran. The Trump administration on Sunday described the Iranian government as a kleptocracy that has amassed tremendous wealth at the cost of its people, which actually sounds a lot like our own government. And Secretary of State Michael Pompeo is out there sort of wooing the Iranian-American community. And he gave them a speech supporting Iranian voices, describing the leadership in Tehran resembles the mafia more than a government. Again, he's projecting. And this event was held at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley. And it looks like they're trying to build support among Iranians here in the United States to somehow provide support of some kind for regime change, maybe to send them back into Iran as agent provocateurs. But it's definitely on. And if you look how poorly we're doing on our current wars, we've clearly lost in Syria. We're losing in Afghanistan. We're mired in Libya. Iran may not be a major power like Russia and China, but is definitely much more capable than these other little tiny nations the U.S. has been whooping on all the time. Now, the Kremlin has acknowledged receiving the invitation for Russian President Putin to meet with President Trump in Washington at the end of the year. And it looks like that's going to move forward. Of course, everybody is saying, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. You're a traitor if you talk to Russia. You're a traitor if you make peace. Have you ever noticed that every single president, when they try and ease tensions with first the Soviet Union, then Russia, they're described as a traitor? Because they're a threat to the military-industrial complex and its giant vacuum cleaner hose jammed into your wallet. Now, Pepe Escobar wrote a really good article. Here's the real reason the U.S. must talk to Russia. And he basically starts out, the United States industrial, military, intelligence, security complex, I think he's running out of hyphens there, basically profits from a compounded annual budget of roughly $1 trillion. That's what all this spookiness and spying and bombs and tanks and everything, that's what it's costing. $1 trillion. Now, the only justification for such huge spending is to maintain the illusion of a lethal external threat. When I was a kid, it was the Soviet Union. Today, it's Russia. And that's the reason they don't want Trump to even talk to Putin. If relations were to normalize, the money dries up. They might, heaven forbid, spend the money on schools and hospitals and better roads for American people. We can't let that happen. That would be un-American. But there are some reasons why the U.S. probably ought to be thinking about getting a little bit more relaxed around Russia. Command, control, communications, computers, intel, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities equal to or better than the United States. Russia has electronic warfare capabilities equal to or better than the United States. Remember the incident with the Donald Cook up in the Black Sea? They just shut that ship down. Russia's new weapon systems, for which the United States doesn't even have anything like them. Air defense systems, more than a match for current U.S. air power. Long-range subsonic, supersonic, and hypersonic cruise missiles that threaten the U.S. empire of bases and even the mainland. How did we get here? How did Russia get past us in all this technology when the U.S. spends so much on the military? Well, because as Major Smedley Butler said, it's a racket. It's just a big racket. The military is just rolling in dough, and they'll put out the weapons, and some of them work, and some of them don't really work all that well. Remember the story we had yesterday where the F-35, which is still not combat ready, is already being given a modernization program. More money, more spending, more gizmos, more gadgets here. So they're still out there saying Russian aggression, Russian aggression. There was a story on Fox earlier today. Poland wants more U.S. troops to counter Russian aggression. Actually, what Poland wants is more U.S. troops spending money in Poland because it helps the economy. That's why all these countries that have all these U.S. bases, they like having those bases there. Not because they're being protected from an enemy, because U.S. money is flowing into their economy through those military bases. And the bottom line here is, why would Russia attack Europe? Europe, as it is worth way more for Russia, free and prosperous, than they would be if destroyed and theoretically subjugated. It doesn't make sense. Now, Russia has tested a new nuclear weapon that can strike anywhere on the planet. There's nothing out of its reach. This is the RS-28 Sarmat missile. This thing can hit both the North and South poles, and it carries more nuclear warheads than any other missile on the planet. And apparently it can deliver up to 24 of Russia's new Avangard hypersonic gliders, each of which carries its own nuclear payload. These are the ones that can evade America's ballistic missile defense system because they're maneuverable. They zip around, they go up and down, they corkscrew. The entire U.S. ballistic missile defense system is based on a doctrine of a presumed predictable ballistic inbound path. And Russia just went right around that. And Putin is saying these weapons will be combat ready by 2020. Meanwhile, China is planning to launch a fleet of unmanned submarines powered by artificial intelligence that will be able to stay at sea for months without refueling, and if necessary can embark on suicide missions to sink enemy targets. That's going to be formidable. All right, let's take a phone call here. Peter in Los Angeles, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, I just wanted to call up and I know you've talked about this many times before, but a couple of weeks ago there was an article that you ran and you talked about it on there about how long it would take for the United States to ramp up to a major mobilization, and how it wasn't where some general commented that we're not ready and blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And the point I want to make is a lot of people don't realize this, but in 1939, when war broke out, we had an army the size of Albania's with no draft. We're using World War I surplus, used up, beat up equipment. 1940, with the fall of France, which took everybody by surprise, there was a massive mobilization at that point. The first peacetime draft took place. And when the United States finally did go to war in 1941, almost 2 years later, we had over 1 million men in the Army already mobilized. We had the industrial war college that had been cranking up plans because we were so unprepared in World War I. They didn't want it to happen this time. And it took us, even then, in a complete, with really good planning and all that, the peak U.S. war production took place in the fall of 1943.
Yes.
By the way, Germany, which was bombed day and night, their peak war production, it actually increased through September, October of 44, and then fell off. But at any rate, when looking at taking on the Russians, let's start with just with Iran. Iran had several million people mobilized in the 80s. They were almost like the Japanese in that they never gave up. They human wave attacks. The Iraqis were using our gas, were gassing them by the tens of thousands, and they still came on. If we were going to go against, I can tell you, people don't realize. Think of the Civil War. The Iran is as big as the United States east of the Mississippi River. It's got 75 or 80 million dedicated people who would fight to the death. We could not take them on the ground, Mike. We would have to take that little peninsula that is the Straits of Hormuz, right? We'd have to take that to secure the oil and all that. And Mike, if you look at that and the density, and it would take at least a corps, 3 or 4 U.S. divisions minimum, and we'd be lucky to hang on to it with that. Well, we don't have 3 or 4 divisions. There's only 400,000 people in the active army. There's no draft in place. It would take us a year, really, to get reinforcements over there of any size. So even to secure the southern parts of the Straits of Hormuz, we could devastate Iran through air, but we could never secure it. We could never invade it. We could never really march on Tehran. And Russia, forget it. They've got better tanks, too. You left out that.
Yes.
They've got this Armada tank, which is excellent. Even their rifles are better. And they're some tough guys. They took on 80% of all the casualties inflicted on the Germans in World War II were inflicted by the Russians. The British and Americans together only took 20% of them. Leningrad lost more people than Britain and France, Britain and the United States put together. Just Leningrad. So we just can't do it, Mike. You've talked about the finances, you've talked about the technology, and the morale. We don't have any of that stuff.
No, we really don't here. But and the major problem when you talk about mobilizing for war, it's not just the manpower issue. It's that wartime material production. Now, going into World War II, the U.S. was a manufacturing powerhouse. We had factories all over the place making cars and trucks and washing machines and so forth. And they could be retooled very quickly to start putting out artillery shells, warplanes, tanks, armored vehicles, and so forth. We don't have that right now. Factories are rather rare in the United States. And so we would have to start building these wartime factories pretty much from scratch. But right now, as I read it, looking at the way that we're conducting these wars that we're already mired in, the U.S. government has forgotten the lesson of Vietnam. They think they can win these wars from the air. And Vietnam, of course, proved that that's not true.
Well, obviously, couldn't do it in Iraq either, or Syria, which
Yes.
we're trying to do. But Mike, between 39 and 40, American companies started to take major orders from France and Britain, and they began tooling up already. The draft was instituted a year later. We were in the Depression, and there was slack in all the manufacturing plants that we did have that could be, they could expand into.
Yes.
And then they had huge credits where industries popped up out of nowhere because the government was building machine tool after machine tool, getting ready for the war, which Roosevelt, as you know, was trying to get us into in the worst way. So it's a completely different, situation, and you have aptly hit it. We can't take on a peer like that anymore.
No, we can't.
All we can do is trade nukes or trade cruise missiles, but we can't go head to head with anybody anymore that's a peer.
It's that trading nukes that I'm really worried about. And again, Paul Craig Roberts, I think this was about 3 months ago, wrote in one of his articles that there was actually serious talk inside the Beltway of just hauling on off and nuking Moscow and getting it over with. That's very, very dangerous thinking. And they may be thinking about Iran, the same thing, just, bomb the heck out of Tehran, a decapitation strike, and not have to, fight for the dirt.
Like even in the conventional war with Iran, where we're not invading it, but just securing that eastern shoulder of the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah.
Like I said, it would take 3 or 4 divisions, which is more than we have in Afghanistan or anywhere right now, anywhere. The Iranians could mass several million people against that.
Yes.
There's no way we could hold them off without nukes. We'd have to nuke them to keep them from pushing us, like the Pusan perimeter, only pushing us right into the sea. We just couldn't do it. We couldn't even hang on to that. So it's insane, really. And any military planner, and I went to the Command and General Staff College. We looked at all this stuff. We looked at taking Majnoon Island and some of those pumping islands off the northern coast in the Persian Gulf. That would be no small trick. Those are bigger than Okinawa.
Yes.
It's just nuts. We just don't have it anymore. Let's get it through your heads, guys. We have 450,000 people in the active U.S. Army. And in World War II, we had 8 million and 16 million under arms. And we had a manufacturing plant to support that and more. Now we don't have any of that.
And you have to consider the 400,000 people in the Army. The Army has had to lower their requirements to be able to get people to enlist. They're not being selective. They're letting in people who are overweight, out of shape, even with criminal records. And if you look at all the money going into the
high school graduates, gang members, yeah.
And if you look at all those incidents with the Navy ramming their ships into cargo shipping out here in the Pacific, it's very obvious that they're skimping on the training of the officers and the sailors and airmen. And that's very dangerous to be cutting corners there. Because as you saw with these ship collisions.
We're academy graduates, most of them. Those destroyer commanders they were Naval Academy graduate, career guys, and they can't handle ships. It's sad. It really is sad. But if we're going to do this, it would take us years. We'd have to start a crash program right now of building machine tools, nothing but machine tools and strategic plants. And I think I told you a couple of years ago, we couldn't even produce enough small arms 5.56 ammunition for the M16 and the SAW to supply a low-intensity war in Iraq and Afghanistan, we had to buy millions of rounds from Taiwan, from Brazil, from Israel, because we've restricted, part of the gun control thing, even the manufacture of ammunition in the United States.
Yeah, that was a big mistake. Plus, after 17 years of war, all of the stockpiles are drawn down. Those warehouses are all but empty now. Anyway, listen, Peter, I got to let you go. We got to do a commercial break here. We got another caller waiting on the line, and we will be right back.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. After just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll-free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And the phone lines are loading up. So let's go to Nathan in Northern California. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Mike. Thanks for taking the call. Just a quick comment on Iran, and maybe you can bail me out since you're the star of the show here. I wrote this down almost word for word as to what Fox said about Iran like last night. And the quote was, "As we all know, Iran is the world's largest supporter of terrorism." its hands or proxies are playing key roles in many of the world's trouble spots, including support of Syrian dictator Assad. Now, can you get me out from underneath the bed on that one? We got just 3 or 4 more to go. They support this evil dictator Assad.
Well, obviously Iran is in fact supporting Assad. They're in Syria helping to get rid of the terrorists. But again, we're seeing a classic case of projection. Anybody the U.S. wants to go after, they're instantly a tyrant, a dictator, a terrorist.
Well, he was duly elected, and he
was.
Had about 80% of the support of the people over the last 6 years. He's not a dictator. He won the election fair and square, as I understand it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But again, truth is the first casualty of war. And we've had 17 years of war and 17 years of nonstop lies to sell those wars to, what remains of the gullible portion of the American people. Everyone the U.S. wants to go after, the media immediately demonizes to make them unsympathetic.
Yeah, well, they're saying it's playing a role in Iraq. Well, what are they doing in Iraq that's so bad? The world's greatest sponsor of terrorism. I got to crawl under the bed and hide because these people are so evil. What in the world have we heard about them doing in Iraq that is so awful?
Well,
I haven't heard anything.
Neither have I. As far as I know, they're basically sort of minding their own business. They've sort of let the Iran-Iraq war kind of fade off into history. But if you look at how much support the U.S. gave for the terrorist groups in Syria, I would say once again it's a case of projection, where the U.S. government is out there basically accusing all these potential target countries of the very crimes the United States itself has been committing.
I agree. And then they go on to say Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now, what's so bad about Hezbollah? I know very little about this group, but I do know that they were on the eastern border of Lebanon, and they went into Syria to stop these paid mercenaries from coming into Lebanon and causing problems.
Yeah, so Hezbollah is a group that defends their Lebanon.
Border. Right, and all I know about Hezbollah in southern Lebanon is I saw this guy go up this dirt road one time, and they're not going to really tell you much about what's going on, but there's a lot of tunnels and storage facilities where they have things going on to prevent Israel from invading that they don't want anybody to know about.
Nathan, I got to put you on hold. Yeah. We got to take a break for station identification, and don't hang up. We'll come right back to you.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And we are talking with Nathan in Northern California. And Nathan, can you just sort of pick up where you left off?
Oh, yeah, Michael, and I'll try to wrap it up for you here. But, you know, Iran is really bad for supporting Hezbollah in Lebanon. The people that have kicked Israel out of Lebanon, twice? And they have a bunch of weapons stored on the southern border to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So Iran's the bad guy for making some contributions to them. And then they went on to say that Iran is bad for supporting Yemen, and we all know that story. And then they support the Palestinian Authority. And do you know what the Palestinian Authority is? I'm not really up to speed on that.
Well, the Palestinian Authority is a group that basically runs the West Bank. And there was an attempt...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like Hamas in Gaza. And Israel has a tendency to set up controlled opposition groups. They did it to Yasser Arafat. Hamas was originally created by Israel's Shin Bet, so that Israel could, have them fight against each other and could play this little game of, we can't have peace talks, we don't know how to talk too. Then Yasser Arafat was assassinated, and all of a sudden Hamas found itself, the government. And at that point, they started trying to function like one. And so Israel helped set up the Palestinian Authority, again, as controlled opposition. That's where that's coming from. Basically, what's going on is the U.S. is giving out this attitude that they have the right to go into other countries and muck about with them all that they want, but nobody else has that right, and anybody who gets in their way is the bad guy.
Yeah, well, I agree. And, one thing about Trump that I've noticed, he's had a chip on his shoulder about Iran even before he became president. He would probably go to work and then come home and watch TV and listen to John Bolton tell a bunch of lies about how horrible this country is and buy every word of it. And, here he is carrying on, as president of the United States. And one last thing on what Fox said. They said even in Venezuela, they're involved in the cocaine trade at Central.
And meanwhile, the CIA is flying tons and tons of opium out of Afghanistan.
Yeah, whatever they might be doing in Venezuela, they can't hold a candle to what the CIA has done. So anyway, that was why we're supposed to, fear Iran. They're the world's sponsor of terrorism. I'm so sick and tired of hearing it. I'm so sick and tired of all this nonsense, and they never really give examples, except Mike Pompeo. I watched his speech, at the Reagan Library, and he said there was this one guy in Vienna who was arrested, connected with Iran, to give this group a bomb to blow up a political meeting in France. I mean, of all the possibilities and all the ways that you can find out how to make a bomb, you've got to go to Iran. I mean, there has to be dozens and dozens and dozens of ways.
Yeah, it's a setup. It's a setup.
I mean, I don't know anything about bomb making, but I mean, the whole thing sounded pathetic. And all I'm saying is if Trump thinks that he can convince us to go to war with Iran, he is sadly mistaken. And if he thinks we're all watching Fox News, he's sadly mistaken. And one last comment, and I'll try to get off here, but I remember years ago listening to the radio to Sean Hannity, and he was talking about Iraq, and he was saying that we have to go over to Iraq and stop them from setting up bases so they can attack us. And this is his selling point. And how many innocent people may have heard those words and gone over to Iraq and never come back, or came back wounded and disfigured, whatever. Yep. He doesn't care. He's got a $20 million home on Long Island or whatever. And mark my words, Sean Hannity, I just despise the guy. He will try to do his very best to sell Iran to the American public
job.
if he's told to do so.
That's his job. That's what the corporate media's job is, to sell you things, to sell you a new car, a new fashion, a new watch, a new president, a new tax, a new war.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I've got a number of other things on my mind, but I'll leave it at that. And thank you very much for letting me get that off my chest.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to let you go here. And before I take this next call, this bizarre story about somebody from Iran was bringing a bomb over to Europe to bomb something in France. It is bogus, and it reminds me of something similar when they were really selling the war on terror to the American people. There was this incident that happened where they caught somebody coming over the ferry from Canada with an improvised bomb to target on the U.S. And they had a photograph of the bomb, and basically, I knew at that point it was a setup, because everything in that bomb can be bought over the counter in the United States. And, people who do this kind of thing, like spies and whatnot, they don't take the stuff with them. Forget James Bond and all the things that fold into his shoe and his necktie and all the rest of it. It doesn't work like that in the real world. They go into their target country and they just get what they need there. Spies in World War II would go into other countries and they would just buy locally made shortwave radios. That's basically it. All right, so we're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates rejoining our network, and we're going to go, boy, we got a lot of callers today. Philip in Virginia, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, a couple things real quick. I can relate to the frustration of your previous caller concerning the demonization of Iran. Just chalk it up. When you hear all of this nonsense about how as you would say, the booga surrounding Iran, it's just tell people that it's fake news. We're seeing the same thing with the booga concerning Russia.
Yeah.
And all of the fake news about their Crimea. They invaded Crimea. They invaded Georgia in 2008. And they're in Ukraine and all of this fake news. That's what it is.
Yep. It's propaganda.
And, right. Another word for fake news, propaganda, or vice versa. I was calling about, you were talking about Carter Page earlier. And when I think of Carter Page, I think of Sergei Skripal. Let the case of Carter Page and Sergei Skripal be a cautionary tale for all you people that do business with the government. You know, I remember Ron Paul had a sign on his, a little plaque on his desk. Those who do government with the do business with the government do so at their own risk. What they're doing to Carter Page is similar to what the British did with Sergei Skripal. He was an asset. Sergei Skripal was an asset of the British. What did they do to him? They demonized him and set him up, made him, fabricated that whole Novichok thing about him. They didn't care if that man died or not. Same thing with Carter Page. You don't think these people in our government knew that Carter Page was a covert FBI operative that was infiltrating? Sorry about that. The old dryer buzzer. He was used for an operation in Russia, folks. Carter Page was a covert FBI operative. And the demonization of him is pathetic. And it's just Carter Page and Sergei Skripal, to me, we can learn a lesson from people that have so-called good intentions working for the government. Your government, they will throw you beneath the bus in a heartbeat to further their They're
absolutely. They'll just sacrifice. Look what they did to Lee Harvey Oswald. You know, the guy was a spook, had been to Russia, came on back, and they just set him up to be the patsy. And when he didn't die at the Texas movie theater, they had him gunned down in the very basement of the Dallas police station.
And also, I guess along those lines, you'd say James Earl Ray and Sirhan Sirhan. You know,
well, James Earl Ray, James Earl Ray wasn't inside the government. He was just somebody that had been, shall we say, groomed by handlers. And I don't think that he realized who his handlers worked for. As far as Sirhan is concerned, the descriptions of him at the Ambassador Hotel seem to indicate he was under some serious pharmaceutical influence at the time. I mean, he was being led around by that girl in the polka dot dress that everybody says never existed.
What about McVeigh?
Yeah, McVeigh, I think he'd been, before the Oklahoma bombing, he'd been acting like somebody who was trying to infiltrate these various patriot groups, and he'd been all over the country, getting into these various groups. So, yeah, I think he was somebody who was FBI informant, and they needed somebody to be the patsy for the Oklahoma City bombing, and he got to be it.
Okay, now one more thing. The big freak out and the meltdown and hyperventilating over Trump throwing our intelligence agencies beneath the bus there at the meeting with Putin. It seems to me that there's been some really major intelligence failures, whether they were on purpose or in deliberate or not. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that our intelligence servers are, for crying out loud, people, don't fall for this technique that they use to try and get us to recoil and backtrack and backpedal. You know, that our intelligence services are a joke. They are an embarrassment. They are criminal, you know?
Yeah, well, we've known about the FBI ever since the COINTELPRO days. We know that CIA's made some major mistakes, and part of the problem is that neither one of these organizations are engaged in intelligence so much as covert ops. They're going on out and they're playing games, and whether they're doing so with full authority or they just decide to do it on their own, which is what the CIA was doing in Arkansas back in the 1980s. That whole operation, guns down, cocaine back, nobody knows who knew about it. It's entirely possible that Vice President Bush knew about it because he'd been the former head of the CIA, but that was definitely kept from Congress and the American people.
Well, I'm surprised we haven't seen somebody like Paul Craig Roberts or Lou Rockwell or somebody like that pen an article, about these intelligence agencies that we're supposed to hold in such high esteem, and that Trump is supposed to, bow down to, basically. Just list, the laundry list of failures and outright misdirections and criminal activities that they've been involved in over the years. And I think that would put the kibosh on, all of this hyperventilating about, our intelligence agencies are beyond reproach and they're not questionable.
They can be reproached and they can be questioned, and they ought to be. We all remember the Bay of Pigs disaster. The CIA lied to President Kennedy to get his support for the invasion. They were telling him their intelligence was that as soon as the Cuban exiles squad landed on the Bay of Pigs, the Cuban people would rise up against Fidel Castro and Cuba would fall back under U.S. control. And of course, what actually happened is the Cuban brigades showed up at the Bay of Pigs, and the Cuban people went down and pounded them into the sand. And when Kennedy realized that he had been lied to, he pulled the plug on the operation. And it was an absolute epic disaster, and publicly he took responsibility for it. But privately, the CIA just botched it all up. And then you have the fact that the CIA missed the Soviet Union going into Afghanistan, and then later on missed the fact that the Soviet Union was going to collapse. I mean, I've had an interaction with CIA myself. Years and years ago at CBS Television City, I was approached by some CIA people about getting involved in what they were doing, and being young, naive, and stupid at the time, I said I might be interested, and I wasn't really impressed with them. They didn't impress me as anything more than thugs wrapped in the American flag, and ultimately our friendship, as it were, ended, and along with my job at CBS Television City, and I went to work for a TV station down in Orange, California.
Well, you sure have given us a few huge examples of the fact that they're not what they want us to think that they are. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I've told the history of the FBI. Ever since Hoover became its director, he was obsessed with the agency's image. And they literally had people reading scripts for TV shows and movies out in Hollywood, looking for anything that might make the FBI look bad and making sure it never got to the final broadcast. There's a movie, The FBI Story, that starred Air Force General Jimmy Stewart. And forget the director's credit. Hoover was on that soundstage every single day telling the director how he wanted this thing to look. And he even appears in the movie seen from the back. Anyway, listen, Philip, we got a bunch of calls to get to, and I'm going to let you go.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
We're going to switch over to Brad in Kentucky. Brad, thank you for waiting so patiently. What's on your mind?
Aloha. Hello?
Aloha.
Oh, hey, Mike. How you doing?
Doing okay.
How's the weather? I hope the weather's better there than it is here. We had some really bad storms here and lost power for several days.
Ooh, where
just got it back on?
Oh yeah, you're in Kentucky. Yeah, actually, I've got some friends up in Indiana, and they said it was really kind of rough there as well. We were supposed to have thunder showers the first part of this week, according to the Weather Channel. So of course we've got puffy clouds and blue skies.
Must be nice.
Yep.
The reason I'm calling in, I just wanted to get your opinion on something that here in where I am, our public schools board just approved a property tax increase to pay for this $13.5 million tax increase for school safety. And I just want to, they unanimously voted on it there, and we have, in order to, if you want to recall this increase, you have to form a committee. You got to get 5 people to file paperwork, and then you have 45 days to collect 10% signatures. 10% of the number of people in our county voted in the last presidential election. And then once they receive the petition, they have 30 days to validate it. Then additional 35 to 45 days to hold a special election to determine if the tax increase will be recalled. And I just wanted to get your opinion, should a school board be allowed to just approve property tax increases, for something like this, and shouldn't the people get to vote on it? The people that living in the county?
Generally, people don't get to vote on property taxes, and unfortunately, the rules change from county to county, from state to state. I find it surprising the school board itself has the authority to declare a tax. That should lie with your county government or your state government. So there may be an issue there, but obviously, however it worked, they've gotten it. It strikes me as a lot of money, even for school safety, and that's what makes it a complicated issue, because we want our schools to be safe. Personally, I think we can make them safe by just banning SSRIs, but nobody's listening to me on that subject. So I think somebody needs to look at how.
I was going to say, this plan, they said, is to they're going to add more secure entrances, walk through metal detectors at middle and high schools.
Okay, Brad, I got to put you on hold. We got to take a commercial break. Do not hang up. I'll be right back.
Okay.
My name is Don Wiskin, and at 42 years old, I suffered a massive heart attack, lost 35% of my heart to damaged tissue, and was supposed to spend the rest of my life on disability. What did I do? I took Extendivite, a garlic and cayenne mix of 7 herbs which rebuilt my heart and gave me back my life. For over 17 years now, I have made this formula available to you so you don't have to suffer the same thing I did. Clean your blocked arteries and strengthen your heart and boost your natural immune system. I'm 60 years old now and I still work every day. To get your Extendivite, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com. Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And we're talking with Brad in Kentucky. And we're talking about apparently the school board has authorized a property tax increase, rather sizable one, supposedly for school safety. And it may be that what's going on is, I saw a story on Fox News earlier today where they want to start putting facial recognition systems into schools so that only people who are supposed to be there can get in there. And it may well be that that's what this school district is planning on doing, because those are very costly systems.
Yeah, they also want to put more district police officers. I guess in the I don't know if we can put them in the schools, but maybe go around the schools, and mental health professionals.
Okay.
So, but you talk about how why isn't anybody looking into all this mass prescriptions of SSRIs?
Because the pharmaceutical corporations have got a lot of money and a lot of political clout, and our society has become broken and corrupt, and it's all about making money. Virtually everything's a racket. Even this could be a racket. School safety is becoming a racket.
It's kind of like how Chertoff got all of the scanners put in the airports.
Yeah, and then he retired into private life, and he opened up a company that sells those scanners. He's making money hand over fist.
But you didn't really. There weren't really any school shootings before these drugs came along.
Pretty much. When I was a kid, everybody had guns. You got your first gun at 12 years old. We'd take them to school, put them in the cloakroom, because after school we'd stop in the fields on the way home and chase away the little critters. And nobody thought anything about it. In all the years that I lived in that little town, there was only one incident with a gun, and that was thought to have been an attempted suicide.
Yeah, so it just seems like everybody, that our kids are nowadays are being taught to be afraid of everything,
They are. Fearful people are easier to control. And what's really tragic about all this, it doesn't matter how much the school board taxes you and how much they spend on school security. The people who are faking or staging these gun attacks to push the gun grabber agenda, they'll still find a way around it. They'll either bribe the right people or they'll hack into the system. Whatever it takes to get their agenda going, they're going to keep on doing it. Anyway, Brad, going to let you go. I want to get to some other callers here. So let's go to Bob behind enemy lines. Bob, thank you for waiting so patiently. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Doing fine.
Oh, good. Now, okay. Let me get my thoughts together here, because I just walked back in from outside, and I was on speakerphone, and you had the last caller on the line. But I was looking at this status of the open carry law with, I guess his name is, hold on, give me just a second here. Nicholas versus Brown, that it was talking about a decision with the California state concealed carry law or open carry law. Have you heard anything about this?
No, I have not. I should look into it, though. But given that it's California and liberal la-la land.
Let me look at this a second. Like I said, I just walked back in. I'm sorry, his name is George Young, the plaintiff. Now, he sued the state of Hawaii for denying him a concealed carry permit back in, I guess it was 2012. Mm-hmm. And the California right to carry has been covering this from basically the beginning of the case. And the reason being is because California's state law for open carry is, well, negligent. I guess I could say that at the very least. Let's put it this way. If you go in public with an open carry firearm, you can expect to be tased by the police state of California, period.
Okay.
There is no way around it. Okay. So what I was wondering is what you think of the Second Amendment and whether or not we should allow each and every citizen of this country, regardless of their past criminal history, to be allowed to carry a firearm in the respect for our Second Amendment. And now there are a lot of people, before I allow you to answer, there are a lot of people that I would prefer not have a firearm.
Yes.
When it comes down to the Constitution, when I read the letter of the law, it seems to me that the Constitution is a God-given right for every American citizen to carry a firearm. Now, I'm not a law-breaking citizen. I'm actually completely legal. I live in a good place. I've got all my P's and Q's in order, and I have abided by the letter of the law.
Okay, we're going to have to take a break here.
I would prefer...
Okay, Bob, sorry I got to
ahead.
do this. Put you on hold. Don't hang
That's
up.
okay.
We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And we're talking with Bob behind enemy lines. We're talking about the Second Amendment. And Bob, I'm a strict constitutionalist. And so I look at the Second Amendment as recognizing a very common sense right to self-preservation and self-defense and protection against tyranny. That's what the Second Amendment is all about. Now, I understand that there are some people who probably ought not to be allowed guns, like repeat criminal offenders and anybody on prescription antidepressants. But if everybody around, or even just a third of the people walking around were carrying, the bad guys would probably not do anything bad. And the people on the prescription antidepressants that go watch a movie or something. And again, we have to look at the example down in Kennesaw, Georgia, where they literally, I think it was about 8 years ago, they passed an ordinance that every home had to have a firearm in working order, and crime fell by 80%. And apparently there's only been one murder in that town since then. There's always going to be crimes of passion and so forth. But basically, how you stop a bad person with a gun is by having a lot of good people with guns around them.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, Mike.
Okay.
So, well, to get back to what I was talking about, the plaintiff in question, his name is George Young.
Yes.
And in 2012, he filed a suit against the state of Hawaii for denying him a concealed carry permit. Now, I don't know a lot about George Young, and I'm not going to pretend to understand who George Young is. But at the same time, I do understand that our Constitution allows us an inherent right to carry a firearm for our self-defense. Now, I don't know who this guy was. I don't know if he was a felon. I don't know if he had some restraining orders against him or whatever might have it. But the real big problem here is that our constitutional Second Amendment never gave any contingencies about criminals or restraining orders or any of that. And,
well, let me share something with you.
I hate to say it. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Let me share something with you. Here in Hawaii, there is a concealed carry permit, but in order to get one, you have to demonstrate that you have a reasonable and realistic fear that somebody is going to harm you or that you might be assaulted. For example, if
I understand that.
Yeah.
I totally understand that. But where does that come into a direct accord with our Second Amendment? Now, look, I understand we need to keep criminals away from the ability to abuse us. But when it really comes down to it, Mike, doesn't it feel fair to assume that any laws that are going to be made are going to be upheld by law-abiding citizens, and the criminals are still going to be able and willing, obviously, to get their guns?
Yeah.
And we need, as law-abiding citizens, to have some kind of defense against this. Would you agree with that?
I would absolutely agree with that.
Well,
and, of course...
The reason I was bringing this into issue...
Bob,
go ahead.
I want to finish up here. Then I got to finish up with you because we got to move on. You're absolutely right. The law-abiding citizens will surrender their guns, and the criminals will always get them, which is even more complicated in these days of 3D printing, where they can print up a gun, commit a crime with it, and then destroy it, get rid of all the evidence. So it's a complex issue. Now, the gun grabbers right now are trying to say it is a myth that law-abiding citizens protect themselves from crimes with firearms. But it's not a myth. It happens more than 1.5 million times every single year, and I know many years ago I was one of them. So
you're preaching to the choir, Mike.
Okay.
You're preaching to
all right,
the choir.
So sum up with this lawsuit thing.
Go ahead.
No, I said it's time. Can you wrap up the story?
Yeah, well, the Federal Appeals Court ruled on Tuesday that the U.S. Constitution's Second Amendment protects a right to carry a gun, in public for self-defense, and they rejected any claims by Hawaii officials that the right to carry only applies to guns kept at home. And the biggest reason why I feel that this is important to stress is that every one of our American citizens right now is faced with a very, very serious decision. We either need to stand up politely as possible. Now, I grant you, look, I don't want a civil war. You don't want a civil war. I would prefer not there be any violence here involved. But we as a people need to stand up against what our government is doing because they are totally and completely out of line. And if you need any reference, take a look at Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson over the last, Thursday, Friday, and this Monday, and you can get a pretty good view of what's really going on in our government. And we the people, we need to stand up and say something about it. And I really, truly hope, as much as you do, that we're able to do it peaceably. But one of the most important things that we can, two of the most important things that we can really treasure in our defense is our ability to speak freely, hence the First Amendment, and our ability to protect ourselves against tyranny, which is the Second Amendment. And
okay, I
the
agree
rest
with you.
of them be damned. If we don't have those first we're going to lose the rest.
Bob, yeah. Somebody just sent me a link to the story about how, and amazingly enough, this was the Ninth Circuit Court that came up with this
Yes,
ruling.
it was.
And that's a real stunner for, considering how ultra liberal they are. But they basically came on out and ruled that yes, the Second Amendment protects one's right to carry a gun openly outside of the home. Anyway, Bob, thank you very much for the call and the update on the story. We're going to take one more phone call and then I have to get back to the news. So let's go to Phoenix in Connecticut. Phoenix, thank you for waiting such a very, very long time. What is on your mind today?
Hi, Michael. This is really great to talk to you. I've listened to your show for a long time. I wrote some notes here, so I would just say that I was a teenage liberal, up until Bush and Kerry. I thought I was kind of blue. And around that same time, I think I read an article of yours. I believe it was yours on your website about false flags in ancient Rome and the Reichstag, and kind of going through history and putting it all together up to 9/11. And that really opened my eyes. I think that was my first official red pill. I wasn't really listening to any talk shows or any other people, and that really kind of opened my eyes and put me on the path that I'm in. And I really think we need more voices like yours, a calm, collected, more rational expression of outrage of the American person, common American. And what really prompted me to call you was my son, because I listen to a lot of different shows, and he really likes your show a lot. So, Phoenix, come here. Sorry about that. He would just wanted to say hi real quick. Hold on 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, how you doing?
Aloha.
Aloha.
Good. Doing what?
How old are you?
Really like it. I'm 10.
You're 10. Well, your father seems to be very proud of you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, can I talk to your father again?
All right. Yeah. Thanks so much, Mike. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Well, I tell my son this is a course in advanced civics.
Yes, very much so. And great. That's. Do me a favor. Send me a picture of your son. Because I'm a frustrated daddy. When I was growing up, all I wanted to be was you, a father with one, maybe two kids. And it just never worked out. So Claire and I are the world's greatest auntie and uncle.
Well, that's cool. I was actually born in Hawaii, and there's a good chance I'll be out there sometime. But I'll send you that picture, and we'll keep listening. And like I said, I really appreciate it. And you've definitely got, I think, the best show out there.
Well, thank you very much for those very, very kind words. And thank you for the phone call, and we're going to let you go here, and we're going to close the phone lines for at least a little while because I'm way, way behind on the talking points. Getting on back to the international news, they've run a poll over in Germany, and most Germans think that Europe can defend itself just fine without U.S. help, meaning U.S. domination. And apparently this was done in response to a threat Donald Trump made 2 weeks ago that he could withdraw support from NATO if the European countries don't throw more money into NATO's budget, which would then be used to buy weapons made in the U.S. of A. So again, Trump's policies are isolating us from the rest of the world. China has launched a live fire exercise, which appears to be designed specifically for an invasion of Taiwan. And it's a 6-day live fire exercise in the East China Sea that does simulate an invasion of Taiwan. Meanwhile, the FBI and the CIA are sounding the alarm over the China Cold War and saying that China is now the most significant threat facing the United States. So I wonder if Trump goes to meet Xi Jinping, if they're going to scream he's being a traitor again. So Michael Collins, the CIA's Deputy Assistant Director for the East Asia Mission Center, says China is waging a quiet Cold War against the United States, using all of its resources to try and replace America as the leading power in the world. Actually, what's going on here is very simple. The United States is an empire in decline. It's obvious to everybody. but nobody in the government wants to admit that. It means they mismanaged the nation. They took what was once the greatest nation on earth and they trashed the place. So they need scapegoats. It's not our fault that things are going. It's Russia. It's China. We have to go to war and give them what for. All right. Now, a little bit of good news out of Korea. Satellite images are showing that North Korea has begun dismantling a missile engine testing facility. This was one of the things that Kim Jong-un committed to during that meeting with Donald Trump. And this, of course, is going to silence all these people saying North Korea is doing this and North Korea is not complying. And, of course, now the ball is in the U.S. government's court whether or not they're going to do something to match this action, reduce some of the sanctions or something, or if they're going to go with Mike Pompeo's attitude of, North Korea destroys it all, and then we'll look at reducing the sanctions here. Down in Nicaragua, as you know, there's been violent riots all over the country. And apparently that has now collapsed. This attempt at a coup d'etat has failed. And basically President Ortega came on out and did a press conference and said, we have to defend our peace and reinstate unity, and reminding them all that Nicaragua has had 11 years of peace during his time in office. And it wasn't until this attempted coup from outside that the violence went on up. And it's been documented the United States is funding the opposition groups. So this is another covert takedown of a country. But the U.S. has played the same game so many times, especially in South America. Everybody's wise to it. Ortega also criticized the Catholic bishops because apparently the Catholic Church was operating as coup leaders, collaborating with the opposition during the protests. The Catholic leadership sided with the opposition during the national dialogue, but priests were involved in kidnapping and torture. Now, Pope Francis has a lot of work to do to rein in the Catholic Church in Nicaragua. If their role in these violent protests and opposition to an economy for the people is not stopped, this will be yet another scandal for the Catholic Church, which has so many we've had to start issuing serial numbers. Now, this is an amazing story. Remember back on April 10th, the FBI raided Rupert Murdoch's 21st Century Fox News offices, and supposedly it was over complaints from Brussels that Fox may have violated European Union antitrust rules. But apparently documents seized in this raid, at least according to Tom Hennigan, document that the 2000 election was being stolen by George W. Bush with the assistance of Fox. And apparently they were using a British Fox satellite to interface with the electronic election system and steal the votes needed to get Bush into the White House. Of course, he had to wind up using the Supreme Court. But I remember when I was watching that Kevin Spacey movie Recount that was supposed to be an accurate description of what was going on. And I remember reading about this at the time of the 2000 election, where Gore almost conceded until somebody said, wait a minute, the numbers aren't matching up. We've got different numbers from this source and different numbers from that source. I wonder if that was where the jamming and interfering was taking place. We've got to reform this election system. We have got to reform this election system. Now, Hillary Clinton has admitted that she had a secret closed-door meeting with Vladimir Putin, but that's okay. It's only when Trump does it that it's a bad thing. So, apparently, remember when Ronald Reagan, when he was trying to calm things down, and they called him a traitor, called John F. Kennedy a traitor. In fact, there were these posters all over Dallas just before he was assassinated, calling him a traitor for wanting to make peace with the Soviet Union. And he did. Kennedy knew the Cold War, the military spending, was bad for both countries. He wanted to call off the moon race in favor of cooperation. But that military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about will not let peace happen, because peace means no money, no promotions. Now, getting into our domestic politics here, Donald Trump has come on out and said the FISA warrant to spy on his campaign is a disgrace to America. The FISA warrant was issued on that unverified and fake dirty dossier that was paid for by Hillary Clinton. It's not really a disgrace to America. It is a disgrace to the FBI and the CIA, the DNC, and Hillary Clinton. But I had no part of it, and I'm not accepting any of the blame for it. But it is a stain on the nation that this kind of thing is still going on. We got to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75% dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And President Trump is starting to act presidential. And he's calling for Robert Mueller's discredited witch hunt to end after the release of the Carter Page FISA application. And he didn't hold back. He went after crooked Hillary, Obama's gang, the corrupt FBI, Department of Justice, and Mueller. The FISA documents confirmed what we already knew. The entire Russia collusion story was a hoax made up and funded by Hillary Clinton and executed by Obama's corrupt Department of Justice and FBI. Now, interestingly enough, there's a story that came out of the conservative treehouse saying that indicted Senate staffer James Wolfe leaked a 2017 copy of the full FISA warrant against Carter Page to reporter Ali Watkins. And apparently, it was actually listed in his indictment that he'd done this. So apparently there's an unredacted version of that FISA application floating around out there, and that would be interesting to see. Now, a lot of people are calling for Trump to declassify the complete document. For some reason, Trump is not showing a lot of enthusiasm on that. He's probably being advised by his advisors who don't like him not to do that. As you know, Donald Trump is looking at withdrawing the security clearance of several Obama administration officials, including former CIA Director John Brenner, ex-FBI Director James Comey, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, former NSA Director Michael Hayden, former National Security Advisor Susan Rice, and former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. And the reason for that, well, it depends on who you ask. Clapper on CNN saying, well, it's just for political reasons. It's a petty way of retribution for speaking out against the president. That may be part of it, but there's another issue. These individuals are not in government service any longer, but they still have access to all this classified information, and there have been accusations that they are leaking information to the corporate media to continue their war against Donald Trump. And I think their security clearances ought to be revoked or at least suspended until they're back in government service. They shouldn't have access to this stuff. Now, you've all heard the story about the dark regions have no fury, the wrath of a woman scorned. Yeah, heck hath no fury like a woman scorned. And that certainly seems to be the case with Lisa Page, because she has turned on her former lover and just thrown him under the bus. And she told a joint committee of the House of Representatives, confirming the text message, there was no big there, meaning they knew all the way back in May there was no evidence of a collusion. All right, we're going to take a quick break for station identification. We're going to come back to this story. We'll be right back.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read a few from Amazon.com. Dr. Sam Serino reviewed the Extendivite product. Good ingredients, feeling much better since taking product. It seems that the tablets work well. Once again, thank you for your product. My acid reflux has really improved thanks to the Extendivite. Together with my thumb joints, the pain is gone and I'm able to grip things much better. My friend has peripheral arterial disorder and their lower legs were hurting in a red color, but thankfully, there has been a significant improvement. Kind regards, Janice. My husband feels a big difference using Extendivite. Thank you. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, the history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. The phone lines are still closed because I got a lot of news to get through this hour here. We're talking about Lisa Page, and we're talking about her testimony behind closed doors to this joint committee of the House of Representatives. Now, this story was broken last Friday by John Solomon in The Hill, based on people he knew who were inside the hearing at the time, and basically came on out that there had, in fact, been a text message from Peter Strzok to her saying there was no big there. This was on May 19th, 10 months into the investigation. This is an admission. They hadn't found anything at all. And they failed miserably. Did they say we can't find anything, the president's innocent? No, they tried to fabricate something out of whole cloth. That's what's going on here. Now, Trump is being seen by the public as more faithful to the U.S. Constitution than Obama was. And 1 in 3 likely U.S. voters think when it comes to executive actions he's taken in the White House, Trump is more faithful to the Constitution than most other presidents. This is from a new Rasmussen report, telephone and online survey. Pardon me. And so Trump's numbers continue to go up. It's driving the Democrats absolutely crazy. The numbers going into November are shifting red. And they're really in a panic right now. Over at Fox News, there are some big changes there. And apparently, top management has informed their reporters to cease all investigative reporting on the FBI and Obama-era corruption. And insiders are saying the place has just gone downhill really fast. Apparently what's going on is the Murdochs are trying to purchase Sky News, and they don't want to make any political waves right now. So they're saying no original investigative pieces, just comment on what the other news channels are reporting on. That's it. So Fox News is kind of a waste now. They're all a waste here. Apparently Abby Huntsman, who's a co-host of the popular Fox News program Fox and Friends Weekends, is in talks with ABC to join their show, The View. Maybe they're going to kick out Whoopi Goldberg after that spitting incident here. But that's the latest rumor over there. Now, the New York Daily News, which is infamous for outlandish anti-Trump covers, has been forced to fire half their newsroom staff. Its parent company, Tronc, reportedly ordered 50% cuts for a new focus on breaking news. And apparently the staffers were informed of the decision in an email. Nobody in management had the courage to stand up and say, I'm sorry, we're going to have to let half of you go. Talking about the economic news here, the currency war has erupted. It's threatening to ripple across global markets. Experts are saying that the 5.1 trillion per day foreign exchange market is showing signs of stress. From the world's largest economies are basically in this game of brinksmanship. They're trying to devalue their currencies faster than the other. Now, the good news, of course, is that as currencies get devalued, precious metals will inevitably go up. Precious metals have been in decline for quite a while, but they're starting to bump upward now. All the rigging is not going to be able to keep those prices down if the currencies are being devalued. So those of you who were smart enough to invest, you did a good thing here. Ron Paul is back out there saying that the problem with the nation's economy is not tax collection, it's spending. And it's spending its way to a fiscal crisis. And that's an old story. No matter how much money the U.S. government has, they want to spend more. And they borrow more from the Federal Reserve, on which you and your descendants will pay the interest. But they're spending money at the rate of $52,000 every single second. And this is what's causing the national debt to reach a record $21 trillion. It's not last year's tax cuts, it's the spending, most of which goes into the military. Another ominous sign this year is that both Social Security and Medicare are having to start drawing down on their reserve funds to pay benefits. And the Social Security and Medicare trust funds will both soon be bankrupt, putting additional strains on the federal budget and the American taxpayers. They're running out of money. And the excessive debt caused by excessive spending will inevitably cause a major economic crisis. And again, this is another similarity with the Soviet Union, who, when Reagan announced his Strategic Defense Initiative, Russia cranked up, trying to find ways to be able to get around it. Even though Star Wars never really materialized, the Soviet Union bankrupted itself with all that military spending, just like the United States is doing right now. We're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Over at Zero Hedge, they're running a warning basically saying that Wall Street is too optimistic on the economy and the slowdown has already begun. Well, Wall Street can afford to be optimistic on the economy. The Federal Reserve is pouring in brand new money into Wall Street, into assets. And they've got plenty of money. They're doing really, really well. So they're going to look around and say, yeah, this is fine. This is a good economy. Because they're not seeing the economy from down here at street level, out in the middle of the United States of America. They're not seeing the cracked pavement. They're not seeing the 40 million Americans on food stamps. They're not seeing the homeless and the hungry. They don't have to look at that. They're in their little glass and steel palaces along Wall Street there. And from there, the view is pretty darn good. Now, I mentioned this earlier in the program, but it bears repeating. A lot of America's farmers, dairy operators are in serious, serious trouble because of this tariff war going on for China, which Trump started. And Trump is now preparing a $12 billion, with a B, bailout fund for farmers hurt by tariffs. And my concern, and I expressed that during the phone call, is that, like the tax cuts, it's going to go to the big corporations. The agribusiness corporations are going to get the lion's share of that, and the small little farmers will be left to basically collapse and go out of business. Down in Venezuela, things are really, really bad. They're getting worse than the Weimar Republic, and hyperinflation is expected to hit literally 1,000,000% by the end of the year. The inflation is so bad, the prices on products are doubling roughly every 4 days. That's how bad it is. Now, as you know, Russia is dumping massive amounts of U.S. Treasury holdings, and along the way has become the world's largest holder of gold. They know which way the world is going. They know where the safe money is going to be. So, to put this in perspective, let's see. Russia was, in 2010, Russia was among the top 10 holders of U.S. Treasuries at $176.3 billion. And apparently it's down quite a bit. Treasury bonds make interest payments twice a year. Now, this begs a question. As Russia dumps the U.S. Treasuries, who's left holding on to America's debt? And there are other countries that hold Treasury bonds. Japan is the second largest investor in U.S. securities. Tokyo has, however, reduced their holdings to $1 trillion, the lowest since October 2011. China holds some of our treasuries. Ireland, Brazil, Great Britain, Switzerland, Luxembourg, and Hong Kong. They're all holding that debt. Well, who is Russia selling these treasuries to? There may be some people out there, some countries out there, some banks out there who still think a U.S. Treasury bond is good as gold. But we've been hearing that the Federal Reserve is basically, again, creating money out of thin air and buying back those Treasury bonds itself. And it now holds a huge supply of them. Now, there's a Treasury bond bubble, because what backs up a U.S. Treasury bond are tax revenues. Money taken from you for which you will receive no goods or services in return, which is a good name for slavery. But the problem is there aren't enough Americans to redeem all those Treasury bonds, especially in an age when wages and salaries are being driven down. They're in a real corner on this. There is no way out of this but a complete reset, a new jubilee. Researchers are warning that the income inequality in the U.S. is getting worse and describe it as being intentional. Of course it was intentional. The money junkies set it up this way. That's stating the obvious there. But apparently the top 1% of American families took home approximately 26.3 times as much income as the bottom 99%. And there's a new report out from the Economic Policy Institute. They're calling it the New Gilded Age, Income Inequality by the U.S. by State, Metropolitan Area, and County. It's authored by Estelle Sommermiller, socioeconomics at the Institute for Research in Economic and Social Sciences in France, and by Mark Price, an economist at the Keystone Research Center in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And they're both sounding the warning that you can only survive so much income inequality. And they're calling this report the New Gilded Age because it hasn't been since the Gilded Age of the 1920s that income inequality was this bad. And of course, what followed that income inequality? The Depression of the 1930s. There comes a point where people are hungry enough, when they've got nothing left to lose, they're going to start seriously thinking about whether the government is the government they want to have here. Story out of Investment Watch blog. Apparently, analysts are looking at the effect of the GOP tax cuts, and they're finding that, as was the case with Reagan's trickle-down economics, there is no trickling down. It's all being held up at the top. It's just being kept there here. Over in Sri Lanka, they owe Iran about $250 million for oil purchases made in recent months. And unfortunately, for Sri Lanka to be compliant with UN Security Council sanctions on Iran, they can't engage in straight financial transactions. It will run afoul of the rules. So Sri Lanka has come up with a very clever idea. They're going to pay for the oil in tea, a straight barter, no financial transaction involved. And I think as these tariffs take hold and sanctions take hold, you're going to start seeing countries doing more and more of this. Just a barter. You give me so much in coal and I'll give you so much in steel. And of course you have countries like, well, Russia is starting to organize BRICS into more than just simply a trading bloc, but a political power. They just had their summit trying to figure out what they're going to do about all the sanctions and tariffs going on. Again, this policy is isolating the United States from the rest of the world, both economically and politically. All right, talking about immigration now. Down in Orlando, city officials approved a policy prohibiting city employees, including police officers, from asking a law-abiding person's immigration status. And there was a city council meeting, was very, very crowded, and the vote basically solidified a city policy and says that anyone reporting a crime or who witnesses criminal activity, as well as persons pulled over for non-criminal traffic violations. And everybody's saying, huzzah, 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 huzzah. Well, there's a bit of a logic flaw in their thinking. If the person is an illegal immigrant, then by default, they are not law-abiding. Now, over at Yale University, one of their professors is out there telling leftists to hide illegal aliens from ICE, and he's been publishing the home addresses of ICE employees. Now, there's a couple of new talking points that the Open Borders people are pushing. They're trying to equate the fight for open borders with the fight against slavery, saying that because slavery, it was legal, but it was morally wrong, therefore illegal activity and violence was justified. And that therefore, because they know that keeping people out of our country is morally wrong, that they're justified in engaging in violence and lawlessness. Well, it's kind of an apples and oranges situation here, because we understand and recognize nobody has a right to own another human being, but all nations have a right to secure their borders. And it's a tremendous difference, but that's their new talking point. And apparently one of the lights of the open border movement came on out and tried to equate ICE with ISIS. That's another of their new talking points. I mean, it's hysterical, totally over the top. But you need to understand that this is creating a problem here in this country. Illegal aliens, just from last year, committed more than 80,000 DUIs, 48,000 assaults, 11,000 weapons violations, 15,000 sexual assaults, 2,000 kidnappings, 1,800 homicides, 4,800 arrests for gang activity, along with 8,000 pounds of heroin, 98,000 narcotics violations. So for all you open borders people, you know, when you go to bed tonight, you might want to pray that your family are not victims of this increase in crime. And of course, a big part of it is that the media isn't reporting on any of this, because they're fully on board with the liberal agenda, and the liberal agenda is open borders are good, and you can't tell people anything else than that. So, I mean, it takes something really extreme to get into the news. I mean, we had this one where this illegal immigrant had been deported 11 times, attacked his wife with a chainsaw in front of their children. That didn't make the headline news. Over in Great Britain, same kind of a thing. Hush, we don't talk about it. You know, we're all working for George Soros and the open borders. We don't report the bad stuff. Apparently, Britain's Home Office had received information about Pakistani grooming gangs raping vulnerable girls more than a decade before it finally agreed to an investigation. So, speaking of violence and lawlessness, down in Florida again, the illegal alien activists shut down a Florida intersection screaming, "We want ICE abolished." And they shut down this border in Miramar, Florida, near the Immigration and Customs Agency's Miramar office. So Tucker Carlson came on out with his commentary, and it says, it's obvious the left doesn't believe in borders, doesn't even believe in citizenship. You've got Democratic politicians in California encourage foreign nationals to vote in our elections. Other offices will not be far behind. The trend is growing. The left rejects the idea that America is even a country. They say it's just an idea, and we have a different idea. Now, there's an opinion from the Washington Standard saying that all of these sanctuary cities, counties, and states that tolerate illegal immigrants and allow them to vote should have all their votes disqualified, because you can't know which are illegal and which are legal because the voter ID laws have all been struck down. So why take a chance? Just say no. We've got illegal immigrants voting in California. Just discount all of California's votes. Just erase them. It's a little draconian, and I don't think it's actually going to happen. But we have to remember, it's illegal to vote in federal elections if you are not a citizen. We're going to take a break for commercials, and we will be right back.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Most basic diseases are caused by yeast in the gut and metals in the liver, and we all have a bit of both. The garlic in Extendivite has a yeast-killing effect in the gut while also helping the sulfur enzyme in the liver get rid of the metals. Extendivite just may improve your overall health. Products like Extendivite are the only way we are going to get our society healthy. And if you're waiting for the government and pharmaceutical care to solve your health problems, you're going to have a long, disappointing wait, I think. Extendivite is a complete formula for extended life in the new millennium. 80 can be the new 60. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the shooting up in Toronto. Very tragic. 2 people killed, a 10-year-old girl, 18-year-old woman, 13 others injured. And they've released the name of the shooter, Faisal Hussein. And apparently, according to his good friend Amir Sukera, it's totally out of character with him. It was like it had to be 2 different people. This Faisal just wasn't a violent person. There was nothing to indicate he was going to do this, except, of course, that he was suffering from depression and getting professional help. Now, over in Greece, they're having a very, very rough time, like they haven't suffered enough under the European Central Bank. They're dealing with massive fires over there. So far, 74 people dead, and apparently 10 people drowned when a boat capsized trying to rescue them from the flames. 26 more died huddled near a cliff. Others burned to death in traffic jams. And officials are saying apparently arsonists simultaneously started 15 blazes. And they're basically near to Athens. They're not in Athens, but close enough where ashes from the fire are falling on the old monuments there. And the Greeks are asking for EU help in dealing with this. And they're also asking for help from the United States in terms of drones to try and see who did this or who was doing it, or if it's going to happen again. But you have to wonder who it would be that would have 15 people that would agree to watch their watch and start a fire all at the same time. Is that unconventional warfare? Is it an act of terror? Is it just angry refugees? Over in Sweden, they're battling 80 forest fires. Theirs are being set by arson. Now, we've got fires out here in the American West. In fact, parts of Yosemite National Park are closing due to the fire in Ferguson. There's a fire at Shasta that is also growing. No word on whether those were set deliberately or not. I wonder if they're going to blame this all on Iran. Iran is trying to burn down Europe and the U.S. Alrighty, now Jeremy Issacharoff, Israel's ambassador to Germany, was able to convince Berlin's Jewish Museum to cancel a BDS speaker. And under pressure from the ambassador, the museum's director pulled the plug on the academic's talk. And again, the ambassador is out there saying that the speaker, Atshan, was very closely connected with BDS, and he's not a person who wishes to build bridges of understanding with Israel. That's a phrase they like to use a lot, building bridges of understanding. Well, the bridges are always one-way roads. That's the problem. It's Israel's way. Israel is stepping up its war on mixed marriages, which is kind of odd given that Israel is at the forefront of encouraging all of this mixing of different people in Europe and the United States. But the Israeli government has been funding various efforts to try and prevent romantic relationships between Jews and non-Jews, both inside territories it controls and around the world. And apparently the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will fund trips to the country for foreign Jews with the express objective of participating in singles mixers on or around Tu B'Av, which is the Jewish Valentine's Day. And they're just hoping that partnerships will happen and they will have marriages. And apparently a lot of this is being funded by Sheldon Adelson. Now, as I understand it, it is considered really bad when a Jewish boy marries a non-Jewish girl. But if a Jewish girl marries a non-Jewish boy, it's considered bringing him into the religion, or at least that's how it was viewed by my in-laws during my first marriage. So it's a complex movement. But again, the hypocrisy is just stunning. Israel's out there, just encouraging everybody to mix it on up here, and yet they're still out there. We've got to maintain our racial purity. We are the chosen ones. Over at the University of Minnesota, they're going to start punishing students and teachers for the incorrect use of gender pronouns. It's part of a policy called Equity and Access, Gender Identity, Gender Expression, Names and Pronouns. And along with punishing students and teachers for incorrect usage of gender pronouns, this also says the policy is individuals may access gender-specific facilities that correspond with their gender identities and may participate in university activities and programs consistent with their gender identities, including, but not limited to, housing, restrooms, locker rooms, recreational services and activities, and camp programs. And it says individuals will not be required to use gender-specific facilities that are inconsistent with their gender identities because of their biology. I mean, this is just really getting nuts. We're going to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you a few from Amazon.com. By Mel. Great product. My husband and father-in-law use it regularly. Both my husband and father-in-law have had significant change in their blood pressure and overall health. By Amazon customers. It works for me. Returned to buy the tincture and the capsules as they were on sale during February. Unlike some other products, this one worked for blood pressure and occasional irregular heartbeat. Extendivite produced noticeable results after just 2 bottles, a 4-month supply. I take Extendivite 3 times a day, every day. I think the supplement has helped with my increased fitness regime and to lower my blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Well, they're stealing down on Wall Street and in Washington too. You know, it makes me wonder, what's a guy on Main Street to do? Always tried to be an honest, upstanding kind of guy. And I must admit lately, I thought about giving something else a try. Oh, I want to be a pirate. I want to sail the 7 seas, yeah, I want to be a pirate.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And I just got an email. I got to read it to you. I'm going to have to paraphrase some of the words in it because of the FCC here. It says, I'm a heterosexual woman pretending to be a lesbian trapped in a man's body. My correct pronoun is bitch. I might also respond to whore. And a couple of others I don't want to go in there. Do I qualify for equity and inclusion at the U of Min? Wonderful sense of humor. Now, here's another bizarre story to show just how completely out of control this is. Guy by the name of Xander Keeg. Well, he's a guy now, but he used to be a woman. And he was, as a woman, he was an outstanding radical feminist. Spoke up often, loudly, and then Keeg made the transition. And he's now being treated like he's a man. He's been accused of mansplaining. He's accused of heterosexual privilege. Whatever happened to all inclusive? And Keeg is out there saying the assertion that I'm now unable to speak out on issues I find important is offensive, and I refuse to allow anyone to silence me. Well, he shouldn't. But I mean, that's how ridiculous this whole gender, transsexual, whatever has gotten. Now, over at the Google Next conference, where attendees thought they were going to be talking about flying cars and cures for diseases, they all got stickers with people's preferred pronouns. I don't think they would have a sticker for mine. My preferred pronoun is Your Highness. Talking about facial recognition a little bit earlier in the program here, and the state of New York is getting ready to put facial recognition cameras at all the toll booths to identify the drivers and the passengers and compare them against databases. This is full Orwell here. And roughly 1 in every 2 American adults are already in the facial recognition networks used by law enforcement. That's a little scary. That is a little scary. Okay, now, story coming out here. Apparently, somebody has coded a new method, a new software approach, a new algorithm that allows what they're describing as full artificial intelligence to fit on a basic laptop. And, okay, what is the AI going to do on the laptop? See, right now, AI tends to be very task-specific. AI to translate what you say into Siri. AI to... You know what they ought to do? They ought to come up with an AI system trying to predict the weather. Something that learns from its own mistakes. Because like I told that caller earlier, last Friday, the Weather Channel forecast for the island of Oahu was thunderstorms yesterday and today. Blue skies. Apparently over at Twitter, their quality filter has been found to exclude top conservatives from searchers, including Breitbart News journalists. And it basically blocks their tweets from being located. And people are out there trying to figure out how are they going to be able to get around this thing. Well, you get around it by getting off of Twitter and going someplace else here. Over at TEDx, the censorship is getting a little bit bizarre. They actually allowed a presentation trying to normalize pedophilia, saying that, you know, it's time to stop ostracizing them. It just, you know, you accepted the gays, you accepted the transsexuals, you accepted, it's time to accept the pedophilia, the pedophiles. No. And it triggered a huge, huge reaction to the point where TEDx finally pulled the video down. And Hein was saying that, yeah, it could be seriously misinterpreted what she was trying to say here. Meanwhile, TEDx has a permanent ban on any talks about the dangers of GMOs, claiming that any discussion of GMOs in a negative light represents pseudoscience and will not be tolerated. So pedophilia is okay, concern over what you're eating, mm-mm. Now, this is a little alarming, and I hope somebody is overreacting, but this came out of Fox News. Research is showing that radiation from smartphones is negatively impacting teenagers' memories, leaving them with short-term memory loss. And the concern is that enough exposure to the radiation could be enough to damage the part of the brain that interprets images and shapes. Well, that part of the brain is actually back here at the occipital lobe. And but there is a concern there, and it basically argues against spending too much time on the cell phone, or use an earpiece or even a speakerphone assembly. But apparently the research was conducted by scientists at the Swiss TPH and studied the habits of 700 adolescents in Switzerland between the ages of 12 and 17. There's another study that claims to have found a link between cell phone radiation and ADHD. Well, your kids shouldn't be using the cell phone in class anyway. The Booga Booga is cranking up here a little bit over at ZDNet. Cyber war, what happens when a nation-state cyber attack kills. And they're pointing out a very real concern. As cyber war becomes more sophisticated, the potential for people actually being harmed or killed is growing, and it almost seems like it's just a matter of time before this happens. And the example they point to is the same one that I've used, which was the attack by the WannaCry ransomware, which crippled large parts of Britain's National Health Service. They had to cancel thousands of appointments, cause disruption and inconvenience for patients around the country. And of course, because all the medical records are computerized, if the doctor, practitioner, nurse cannot see the patient record, they could make a mistake in terms of a treatment. They could kill a patient. Now, over at Georgia Southern University, there's a white female student that is facing official sanctions from her school for texting the N-word to her black roommate. But it was an autocorrect error on her smartphone. And we've all had to deal with this, where you're trying typing something in and the iPhone will say, well, I don't know what this is, so I'm just going to throw something in there at random. And the screenshots of the text message application show the first text went out and was immediately followed by an apology saying, oh my God, it was the autocorrect. I meant to say something else. But apparently she's still being sanctioned even though there was no intent. Remember that Gallup survey we were talking about, the one that said immigration is the most important issue to American voters today and Russia's right down there at the bottom? It turns out climate change didn't even make the cut. Nobody mentioned it in the Gallup survey. Nobody said, I'm concerned about climate change. Just didn't happen here. Now, a little bit of good news, because we've all been bothered by these time wasters. The United States has broken up a fake IRS phone scam operation. 21 people have been sentenced for up to 20 years, 32 in India indicted. And what they were doing is they were running these phone banks from India, so they didn't have to respect the do not call list. And they would call up and pretend to be a collection agent or police, and they would say, you're about to be arrested, a warrant's been issued, unless you issue us a payment right now on your debit, credit card, or whatever, we're going to be coming after you. And apparently, sadly, a lot of people fell for this. We're talking millions and millions of dollars were scammed by these people, but they were tracked down. That's a victory for the good guys there. Now, Vladimir Putin is doing a lot of other things besides manipulating Donald Trump. And he's ordered the government to look at a plan to construct a bridge connecting Sakhalin Island in Russia's Far East with the mainland. If they actually build this, it will be the world's longest bridge. It'll be more than 5 miles long. That'll be amazing to see. That will be an amazing achievement. Back here in Hawaii, our volcano is still volcanoing. Lava is still flowing out of fissure number 8 into the ocean. We did have a little bit of an upset where a lava bomb hit a tour boat that got a little too close. And Kilauea's summit continues to subside. We could see major structural damage to buildings in that entire area. And there is a town very, very close called Volcano. Good name for a town on a volcano. And of course, they're being rattled by these equivalent to a magnitude 5 quakes on a regular basis. It's become so predictable on the seismicity, they're predicting the next one for tomorrow morning. But the floor of Kilauea is definitely sinking. The entire summit is subsiding. There could still be a major subsidence events down there. And geologists are saying they don't know when this is going to stop. They're saying it could last for months. It could even last for years. As of now, this is the single largest lava flow out of Kilauea and its fissures in that part of the island. There have been earlier lava flows. Claire and I went down and saw one once. This one has become the largest. It's really huge out there. Alrighty, from the world of medicine. Doctors are apparently still prescribing antibiotics that have left people in crippling pain. And the antibiotics are called quinolones and fluoroquinolones. And in some people, even a short course of the pills can cause long-term, even permanent damage, including tendon rupture, joint problems, and nerve pain. And still, they're prescribing this stuff. Why? because it makes money. Now, one of the problems with antibiotics when they were first discovered, all the way back with penicillin, was the magic cure-all drug. And they just started using them everywhere. And they overused them. And the problem is that the little pathogens have evolved to survive the antibiotics. And so big pharmacy companies come out with new, more potent antibiotics. And apparently these have got serious side effects. I think there's something about Hippocrates saying, first of all, do no harm. Now, Dwayne Johnson, not the movie star, groundskeeper, worked in Benicia, California. He's 46 years old. He's in court right now. He's been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he basically, as part of his job as groundskeeper, he mixed and sprayed hundreds of gallons of Roundup to keep grass and weeds under control. And he is convinced it is responsible for his terminal illness. And remember, the World Health Organization has come on out and said glyphosate is a probable human carcinogen. And Dwayne Johnson is out there saying he never would have sprayed that product on school grounds or around people if he had known it had the potential to cause harm. And remember, documents leaked out of Monsanto about a year ago said they knew there was a problem and basically covered it up. And so Dwayne is saying it's unethical, it's wrong. I have children who go to school. People don't deserve that. They deserve better. And that's absolutely true. Now, one of the stories that we have covered in the past is a tragic victory for the advertising industry that convinced mothers that what came out of their own bodies was not as good for the baby as what was coming out of these factories. And it's simply not true. The manufactured baby formulas are very simplistic. It's nutrition only. But there's this story that came on out of here where they're still pushing conventional cancer treatments like chemo and radiation. You know, those are the end-all, be-all. We're going to push those. They're expensive. Yes, it's costly, but that's your best shot here. As we reported yesterday, though, chemo actually fails more than 90% of the time here. So anyway, there was this researcher, Professor Katharina Svanborg, and she's working out of the Lund University in Sweden. And what she's discovered is that human breast milk has a complex of protein and fats that kills over 40 types of cancer. Now you think about that one for a bit. And this cancer-killing combination she's dubbed Hamlet, which is an acronym for human alpha lactalbumin, made lethal to tumor cells, and it's shown great success in laboratory applications, shrinking brain, bladder, and colon tumors with ease. Tests involving human and animal cancer cell lines have shown Hamlet is effective against at least 40 types of cancer. We'll never see this in the United States of America. You know, we're still making payments on those radiation machines. We can't have a cancer cure. We make our money treating cancers. Reminds me of Bob Guccione's wife, and I forget her name, but she had her own magazine on natural, healthy living, and she came down with cancer. And rather than go the traditional method, she undertook a course of a very inexpensive chemical called hydrazine sulfate, which was being championed by a doctor, I think, in upstate New York. And it appeared to be working. She had to go to the hospital for an unrelated cause and died on the operating table. But the big stink over hydrazine sulfate, it's being used in Russia. It's been used in a lot of countries. It's very inexpensive. And the issue, though, is that the National Cancer Institutes were asked, actually pretty much told, you will test this. And they violated the protocol. They didn't test it the way it's supposed to be used. They tested it in a way guaranteed to make sure that it would fail. That's how corrupt these government agencies are. And we're talking about something that happened like 15 years ago, I think. but it really is nonsensical. To live in a country where ineffective and dangerous products are sold purely for the profit motive. Alrighty. Apparently out in California, Californians are now being asked to ration their own power. The grid is not able to keep up with the demand. I imagine that all those illegal immigrants are part of what's straining that system out there. Okay, we're going to take a break for commercials here, and we'll be back with the last segment of our program after these few words.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today here. And again, there's a lot of hoax news out there. And I'm going to share with you an example somebody sent to me. And they actually thought this was true. And the headline reads, it's from the website scienceinfo.news. and I'm not going to waste any more time reading the rest of the site after this one. A cosmic event that only happens every 35,000 years, July 27, 2018, the planet Mars will be as big as the moon. And the story basically goes on to say that on July 27th, if you walk on out and you look up in the sky, Mars will be so close, it will be as big as our moon. This is complete and utter nonsense. Now, Mars is at opposition. That's as close as it's ever going to get. I mean, it can get a little closer, but that's it. And it still looks like a point light in the sky. It's very bright now because of the Martian dust storms. But I don't know if they put this out as clickbait or if they actually thought they were going to get people to buy for this one. But you got to be really, really careful. And in an age where Common Core has de-emphasized science, critical thinking, logic, people fall for this stuff. And the smarter you are, the more knowledgeable you are, the harder it is to fool you. As far as Mars itself is concerned, the dust storm is still going on. They say maybe September before the dust begins to settle and they can get back in touch with opportunity. All right, we're going to take one more phone call to close out the show. Jerry in Michigan, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. I just heard you a little bit ago was talking about that 5 Mile bridge or so over in
well, they haven't built it yet. No, it's going to be built in Russia.
Russia. I was just looking on. My wife and I went across the long bridge down there in. Excuse the pronunciation. Lake Pontchartrain in Louisiana.
Yes.
23.83 miles.
Oh, so I guess this Russian bridge
one.
Isn't the longest one in the world. And is that a bridge or a highway across Pontchartrain?
It's a highway bridge.
Okay.
It's a highway bridge.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Causeway. Okay, just thought I'd let you know.
All right,
you have a good one.
I stand corrected on that issue, but it still will be an impressive engineering feat. There are some amazing bridges being built in other countries. And they're not only functional, they're very beautiful, especially the cable stay bridges. Those are very, very elegant. Okay, Jerry, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go. We're about out of time here. And one of the reasons I know the United States is an empire in decline is we're not doing this kind of stuff anymore. Other countries, they're building, bridges, bullet trains, fantastic works of engineering. The United States can't even maintain what it's already got. The water systems are leaking. The roads are crumbling. Our bridges are on the verge of collapse. They've been declared substandard. We have dams that are at risk of collapse. It's not that Russia and China are displacing us as the ruler of the world. It's that we're collapsing. That's what's really going on. Okay, there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here and get some errands done this afternoon. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got a lot of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you learn here and share it with everyone that you know. Email, face-to-face, bring back the art of the conversation. And again, be on the alert. There is a lot of fake news being generated right now, trying to keep things obscured, to keep you ignorant. And you need to work to keep yourself informed. That's what we're all about here at Republic Broadcasting and WhatReallyHappened.com. All right, we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.